everyone. Today we're diving into a tricky but important topic about how conversations go with manipulative or problematic people. More importantly, how to weigh out whether engaging with them is even worth your time. If you've ever dealt with someone who's highly manipulative, competitive, or vindictive, you know how exhausting these interactions can be. Here's the thing. People like this often project their own way of thinking onto others because they're mean-spirited or vindictive. They assume you are too. They live in this warped reality where they can't imagine others having motives beyond their own selfish framework. Let's get started with spotting some red flags. When you challenge their worldview, they might accuse you of virtue signaling or acting superior. But the reality is, their thought process is often stuck in a very primal, immature state. They lack the emotional maturity to appreciate the complexities of human behavior or emotion. They reduce everything and everyone to black and white thinking. The moment you start setting boundaries, you're no longer useful to them, and they'll find someone else to serve their needs. It's not about you as a person, it's about what you can provide. They'll even throw other people in your face, saying things like, "This person gives me lots of grace. These friends have put up with anything and accepted me exactly as I am and make things very pleasant for me." Or mention how they have people who stick beside them no matter what. This is signaling that you should let them treat you however they want because that's your job. It's manipulative, and it's a clear sign that they don't see you as an individual. They see you as a tool. They will subliminally signal that people are waiting for their downfall when the truth is that no one is actually thinking about them that much. People are mostly thinking about themselves. And if they do think about others, what makes anyone think that they're wishing for someone's downfall? This is a very arrogant thought process, and it's pretty delusional. Let's talk about whether it's going to be worth it to engage in this conversation or why even bother. First, ask yourself, what's the likelihood that they'll actually introspect? It's one thing for someone to say that they're not perfect. That's easy. We all know we're not perfect. But can they truly self-assess, think critically, and own their specific behaviors? If the answer is no, any conversation will likely leave you more frustrated than before. Second, recognize that no matter how the conversation ends, whether you have a final talk or just cut them off, you'll still have to process your own grief. Part of that grief often comes from realizing you put someone on a pedestal that they didn't deserve. So here's the thing. People like this won't just let you leave quietly. They will obsessively villainize you, spinning stories to paint themselves as the victim. Why they do this? It's because blaming you is easier than looking at themselves. Pride and arrogance keeps them from growing and changing. At the end of the day, it's up to you to decide if the energy spent trying to reach them is worth it. For many of us, the answer is no. Now let's talk about some tips and considerations for if you choose to engage. I know these interactions can feel overwhelming, but I also want to give you some hope. Sometimes these conversations can lead to positive change if approached the right way and under the right circumstances. Let's get to it. Here are some strategies that have worked for me when navigating these kinds of conversations. Number one, focus on the present. Manipulative people often gaslight you by rewriting history or distorting past events. When this happens, you can respond by saying, "I know we often remember things differently, so let's stay focused on what's happening right now." This approach keeps the conversation grounded in the present and prevents you from being derailed by endless debates over the past. Number two, slow down the conversation if they throw multiple issues at you in a rapid succession. what's sometimes called word salad. Don't let them overwhelm you. Instead, calmly say, my brain doesn't work that fast. Let's focus on one issue at a time. You mentioned this, and go into it. Can we talk about this first before moving on? This prevents them from using chaos as a tactic to confuse you or frustrate you. Number 3, set clear boundaries. It's okay to communicate your limits. For example, I want to have a productive conversation, but I need us to be respectful in this dialogue. If that's not possible, we may need to pause and revisit this conversation later. Boundaries aren't just for their benefit, they'll also help you stay grounded. Last, acknowledge and consider the type of relationship you have with this person and the context before deciding whether or not to engage. If it's family, you may need to maintain some level of contact, so a productive conversation would be worthwhile. If it's a friend and the relationship has become toxic, it may be easier to step away entirely. If it's a coworker, focus on solutions that allow you to coexist professionally without becoming enmeshed in personal drama. Look for signs of introspection. Some manipulative individuals can change, but only if they're willing to reflect on their behavior. Pay attention to is if this person can admit specific wrongdoings, acknowledge how actions have impacted you, show willingness to improve. Sometimes using these techniques can create real breakthroughs. In one recent conversation, I stayed focused, I slowed the pace of the conversation, and I maintained my boundaries. And it actually worked. The other person responded very positively, and our relationship actually improved. I kept the conversation grounded and in the present. I calmly addressed issues one at a time. The other person showed enough willingness to introspect and adjust their behavior. While this isn't always the outcome, it's a reminder that meaningful change is possible in the right context. Unfortunately, not all conversations will end positively, and here are some reasons why. Once again, they may villainize you to avoid taking accountability. They may escalate their manipulative behavior instead of reflecting, or they may simply refuse to see you as anything other than a resource to their own needs. In these cases, the best outcome is often walking away. And while it is painful, it allows you to protect your peace. Here are some final thoughts. Whether or not you decide to engage depends on several factors. These factors include, but are not limited to, the nature of your relationship, your emotional capacity, the likelihood of meaningful change. If you decide to engage, use the strategies I've shared to navigate the conversation with confidence. But remember, if the relationship doesn't improve, it's not your failure. Walking away is sometimes the healthiest option, and it allows for you to focus on the people and relationships that truly matter. Let me know in the comments, have you ever had a breakthrough conversation with a manipulative person? I'm really curious about this. Or have you learned it's better to disengage? I'd love to hear your stories. Thanks for watching. Thanks for continuing to engage on my channel and share these personal stories and testimonies with me. And until next time, have a great day.